Hey, it's Rich, Tennessee Homestead. How the heck are you? On this one, title says it all. It all starts in the soil, folks. The microbiology of our soil is what is important. It is what makes things work. It is that diverse living biology that modern farming has destroyed in the soil. This is a clip from that I've got coming up is from Ray Archuletta's one of his talks, but it's a good demonstration on what's going on out there. He's got several samples, primarily of soil type. It's all the same soil type. It's all a clay with sandy loam. But the thing of it is, what covers that soil? You have till, no till. You have a couple examples of long-term grazing effects on a pasture with good, healthy biodiversity, and then you also have one of an overgrazed pasture. And you will see that you've probably heard it said that modern farming practices is causing a desertification of our soils, and it is. We are creating our own droughts out there, folks, by the way we are taking care of the soil. So that's where we're going to begin with this one, is getting you into the soil. And this is a very clear example of why. And we'll also show you that, don't worry about how often it rains. Worry about how much rain you keep. So won't sit here and flap my gums too long on this. I want you to see this video. It's a good starting point for the rest of this talk. So without further ado, let me give you Ray Archuletta and his display.
In the Athens area, it's about 2.5 hours north of here. Conventional tillage, all seasonal, packlet soil types, soil series. This would be short-term no-till, a couple of years, residue. And then we don't know the difference between these two right now because Doug hid the markings, but these are both fescue pastures. One's been managed grazing for almost 40 years. One's been managed grazing for about 4. And then of course we have our overgrazed tall fescue pasture here, long-term continuous grazing.
Soil types?
Soil types are sesals and packlets, similar to what they dropped in the slaking tests of sandy clay loams.
Let's give Philip a hand for getting this collection. It's a lot of work. And Doug Peterson, thank you, Doug. It's a lot of work. They did this because they love you, man. That's what they did this for. Okay, here we go. I'm going to show you the conventional. What do we typically do? We run our tillage machine, loosen it up because we want to make it fluffy to allow more air to go in, right? Right? All of us were taught that way. We were all taught that way. Now, notice the nature right here. Look at the no-till has a covering. Look at the sod. Inside the sod. Can you get it? All good, healthy ecosystems always have armor in the system. No-till. Look at the grass. You will find them in forests. That's called the detritus sphere. Always having armor or having vegetation. Look at some of our organic farms and our conventional systems. Okay? Now, let's make it rain. Looks pretty good. Okay. What? Say it again. Where are we? Well, it's interesting. Once you bring your soils healthy, it helps diminish the drought. What I'm going to show you is a diminished water cycle. As this rain is coming down, a lot of us say, we're praying for rain. What we should be doing is praying that we restore our soils because we know we can't bring the rain, can we? We don't know when we're going to get the rain. But it's all how you manage your tools and your cattle. If you overgrazed, you diminish that water cycle. As you can see already, Willie, you got it right here? Look how, just in a couple of minutes, look what's happening to that soil, that conventional. And think of the millions and millions of acres throughout the globe that tillage is still the major way that we farm. And what is happening through the water cycle, the thing people don't realize, as the water runs off, the water has to go in the soil. A lot of our conservation is you put diapers at the end. So in other words, right here, we would have a diaper. We would be tilling within the terrace, but we did a buffer. We put a buffer out there, but yet we're still tilling between the terrace, and you destroy the aggregate stability and the cottage cheese. Ladies and gentlemen, proactive conservation is when you address it the moment the raindrop lands right there. If you do not take care of it right there, everything else is a diaper and reactive conservation. Ready? A little longer? You wanted to run a little longer? Now notice real quick, before Doug turns it off, I want you to notice on the backdrop here how it's beginning to splash. When those particles are disassociated and comes and detaches, it lands on the plant, and then all of a sudden you have disease in your cotton. You have disease in your soybean. You have disease in your tomato plants. Because those particles there, and you get a bacteria. And you have an infection site. Look at how it disassociates. Notice also the soil also in the overgrazed pasture. Let's go ahead and shut it up, Doug. I think proved our point. Now, these soils in Georgia are pretty sandy, correct? That one that you had, the conventional?
Right. There'll be sandy clay loams from Piedmont.
Okay, good. Let's turn this thing off. Then let's see how much we got. Look how much ran off. Look how much infiltrated. When I go to eastern Colorado, they say, we can't afford to grow cover crops, Ray. We don't have enough water. Maybe the fact is your soil is so destroyed, it can't take anything in and won't infiltrate. And then because it's so hot, a lot of it evaporates. Because we have a dysfunctional soil. And yet we blame the cover crops. Notice also the no-till. Look how much ran off, and look how much infiltrated. And how many times have we heard no-till, no yield? But see, ladies and gentlemen, no-till is not enough. It never was enough. No-till with covers changes everything. No-till stops the destruction of the soil structure, but it does not feed the system. It is covers that feed the system. No-till is not enough. Now, let's look at the patch, these both properly managed grass systems. Look how much infiltrated. Look how much ran off. Now, same thing happened to the other one. I'm not going to show you that one. Now, this is always amazing to me, grazers. Look how the cow can be a very destructive tool. It's not the cow. It's the understanding of the person managing the cow. Look how much ran off, and look how much infiltrated. And then guess what we do? We'll go buy chemical fertilizer because that paddock looks terrible. Then you take away your profit because you put it on chemical fertilizer. Because we didn't understand that we took too much solar panel. And when you take too much, now interesting about this, ladies and gentlemen, we did not till that system. We did not till it. And yet a majority of the water ran off because the soil is exposed. When you take too much solar panel, you steal from the process of making cottage cheese, aggregates. Those aggregates are what holds the clays and sands together. You take too much carbon, you hurt the system. You've got to be careful how you manage the animals. Now, let's flip this one over. Doug, you want to flip this over? Okay. We're gonna flip this over. Doug's gonna flip it over. What I love about flipping this over is I have seen grown men cry because they say, I cannot believe this is happening to my place. Let's see how much infiltrated in that short time. Ready? Look how much, look how dry it is. And this is happening through the whole globe. Because we did not understand and how powerful the biology is. Isn't that amazing?
Alrighty. I hope by that little demonstration you see how we are through tillage and leaving these fields exposed to the elements. Just how bad it is and how hard it is on our systems. But that's what farmers were taught. Okay? Can't blame the farmers. They were taught this. Even if they went to university and went through all the ag classes and so forth, this is what they were taught. Sad. But it's causing a desertification of our cropland. And a little bit farther here, I'll explain exactly how that desertification takes place. We change the environment over those fields. We change the air and the atmosphere over those fields. You know, people think about the Dust Bowl and they blamed it firmly on the farmer. Oh, it's his fault. It's what they were taught. Okay? Much like today, it was what they were taught. Now, I have to say that many are catching on. Many are catching on. But as far as desertification, when you turn your land into a barren, dry area, one, your sun heats that soil up to, up to 150 degrees. The soil and the air getting that hot causes it to remove the moisture out of the air. I lived a lot of years in Las Vegas, spent a lot of time out in the desert. In the Las Vegas area, you had zero humidity in the air most of the time. Zero humidity. Well, I saw a snowstorm that they were forecasting 4 inches of snow for Las Vegas. The snow never got, the moisture never got, the water never got closer than 5 foot to the ground. At that point, it had all evaporated. You see that a lot with the rains in Las Vegas. They never get to the ground. You can see it coming. It looks like you're going to get a good rain. You don't get it. It evaporates before it can hit the ground. The cloud structures break apart, and you're literally watching these storm clouds disappear in front of you. It's amazing. And it has nothing more to do with the soil is that dry and it is that hot that those rain particles evaporate before they ever reach the ground. You don't think we can do that again to our farmland? We sure can. It is sad to say, and that's why we get monsoons in these desert areas primarily only during the fall and winter. Our food crops that we are growing, even growing it organically, they're deficient. They're deficient in nutrients. They're deficient in most minerals. I got some slides coming up here that'll show you how badly they're deficient. It boils down to why are we why are we always taking multivitamins? Well, folks, you need it because there is very little food out there available to you that contains the proper nutrients. That's why just because it's labeled organic doesn't mean all the nutrients are there. In 1991, they quit testing your food for nutrient quality because they watched this fall from 1940 to 1991 astounding rates. I mean, look at copper and calcium, iron, magnesium, potassium, All these have fallen well below what is recommended for your daily nutritional requirements. It's not there anymore. So they just stuck and said, well, if we don't test it anymore, we don't really know, and the consumer doesn't know, so they don't know that they've got a plate of food in front of them that virtually has no real nutrients left in it. It's gone. Why? Well, microbiology in the soil. What builds that soil is what provides the nutrients. When you go to get a soil test, they're going to give you a test of the soluble nutrients in your soil. That means the nutrients that your plant can suck right out of the soil. It's not the way nature's got it designed. The nature has it designed that you need the bacteria and you need your fungi and protozoids and so forth working in that soil to produce those soluble nutrients. I had heard one biologist said it the best. There is enough fertilizer in the soil to grow your crops for 1,000 years without adding a single thing to it, as so long as it's growing in soil, good soil. You're looking at a good sign of good soil. Worms. They are one of the top predators of microbiology. You see worms, you know you've got a lot of microbiology in that soil. You can also see those little nodes, those little round balls of dirt. Those are created not by Mother Nature's whim of let's just make dirt like this. It's that microbiology in your soil that actually wraps those little particles up, those nutrients up in their soluble form for the plant and encapsulate them in a glue. Wow, what a system, huh? Without them, that's not going to happen. That soil, every time it rains, is just going to compact and get harder and harder and harder. And to even get a seed into it, lo and behold, you're going to have to get out there and disc it up because the compaction is going to be too much for your plant to ever take root. It is not the way we want to grow food. It's not going to work. Now, how did all these little dirt nodes get formed there that open up the soil and open up passages and aerate the soil and all that? Well, that's the job of the bacteria and your mycorrhizal fungi. Ooh, tongue-tied. These little things are, the fungus is fascinating. It actually forms a symbiotic relationship with the plant's roots. Now, through photosynthesis, these plants, the best way to describe it is they secrete from their root ends cookies and cakes. Yeah, easy way for it to remember it. Basically, that plant is giving off, along with some acids like carbonic acid and so forth, it gives off sugars, carbohydrates, and proteins. That's what it's putting back into the soil. It is feeding that microbiology with this. And basically, if you look at sugar, carbohydrates, flour, protein, eggs and milk, hey, you just whipped up a cake batter, right? So, cookies and cakes. That's what the plant feeds. The mycorrhizal fungi forms a symbiotic relationship in that plant root. They defend it. You'll see a little farther up that chart there, nematodes, the root feeders. They'll do damage to that plant. That mycorrhizal fungi is going to defend that plant. Period. It's going to defend it. It has a way of ensnaring those root feeders, waiting for, a micro orthopod to come by and eat it, or starve it to death. It can't get to that root. Fascinating creatures. You have the bacteria, your protozoa keeps that in check. That's what it feeds off of. You have these other nematodes that feed off of fungus and so forth, keeping the growth of that in check. And then you have the predator type nematodes that feed off of the protozoa and other nematodes. It's a perfectly balanced little civilization down there. And then you have larger arthropods that will feed off of the smaller arthropods, and of course birds and so forth feed off of them. Unique system. It's all designed to work together. Okay? Organic matter is very important. That is what, when you get a soil test done, they're going to look at that and see what kind of nutrients is in it. All right? Because these are the nutrients that plant can suck up out of the soil. Okay, it can't go down there and just grab any nitrogen that's in the soil because it's probably encapsulated. But if you look at the little nodes that are there, that is created by your biosystem. They encapsulate that in a glue substance called globulin, and form little balls. The plant can eat that. They can take that up. Okay, it's feed just laying there for them, and it's always out collecting more and more food. The mycorrhizal is very important to the plant. It defends the plant from parasites and so forth at the root level, and keeps that plant alive. It forms a network that just amazes me. The network it can form. They had done some research to where they had these things out. They were dropping some isotopes in the forest area to see how the fungus passes it around. And they found not only does it pass it around in the forest, but it also, there was like a 50 or 100 acre pasture next to it, and all of a sudden they found these isotopes showing up all over this pasture. It forms an interconnected network right up there at the root. Okay? What do you think happens to that network when you run a tiller through it? You got it. You just tore it to pieces. Tillage is bad. Any way you want to slice it, it should be kept at an absolute minimum. But you see by that photo that these things have a unique structure. It is a food web, one that we need to protect very carefully. Synthetic fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides, tillage, it destroys the microorganisms in the soil. What are we doing here, folks? We have to come up with a new solution of how to deal with keeping these little critters alive. The way you do that is through regenerative agriculture techniques. So what does all this microbiology really do for you? Well, it builds your soil structure by taking soluble nutrients that a plant needs to survive. They glue that together to where they can feed it to the plant. Bacteria, well, bacteria likes to eat pathogens. You know, those things that kill your plants. Make your plants sick, make them weak. It increases the fertilization efficiency of your soil, because these fungi goes out and the plant says, I need more nitrogen, and it will go find that nitrogen in the soil and convert it into a soluble liquid or soluble form that the plant root can take up. There's a symbiotic relationship there. It's very important to good, fertile, healthy soil. It strengthens the plant health. The things like Mycorrhizae Fungi are really defenders of the plant. That's the goose that laid the golden egg for them. It feeds them, gives them everything they need. It keeps them alive. You don't think they have means to protect it? You bet they do. Okay? They could even take on these little pathogens, or the little predators like these root feeders, and capture them and hold them, not letting them get to that plant root. You see those little globulin balls in the soil here around that root. That's what they do. That's how they create this stuff. It is a way to protect that plant. It is that plant is their life-giving source. They defend it. They take care of it. They protect it from the bad pathogens. They run off and eat the bad bacteria. That's how it works. It can build you good, solid soils. All right. In the process of this, it takes care of erosion issues. It binds heavy metals together. It enhances the nutritional and medical value of our foods. Matter of fact, talking about medical values, those little bacteria that are in the soil, that good bacteria, that's where most of your antibiotics comes from. It's derived from them. So it's even important to your health that we we keep those bacteria in good shape. And I don't trust biotech companies growing them in petri jars. Okay? It'd be a lot better if they could extract them out of the soil. But all these things play together. Okay? And when you get soil that looks like this, how deep can a root go? Seriously, how deep can those roots go? Well, a lot of experts say up to 16 miles deep in old growth areas. Think about that for a minute. 16 miles. You think that plant will ever suffer from a drought? Seriously, do you think it would ever suffer from a drought? We already know that there's enough nutrients in soil, even in dirt that gets converted back into soil. There's enough nutrients in there that you could grow plants and grow crops on that land for 1,000 years without any inputs whatsoever. Think about that for a minute. It's all there. You just need the microbiology in your soil to get it out. And nature is, and microbiology is just fascinating. The more I've learned about it, the more I've studied it, made me want to study it even more. Good grief, I got to tell you, I have fallen in love with it. Okay, when you see things like this here, a tree growing out of a rock. Well, how did that happen? Well, you had some dirt blow in there, probably a very light layer of it. You had bacteria blow in with it. The bacteria went to work decomposing the minerals that was in the soil, starting to break that down, and by golly, you had a plant start in there. Through photosynthesis, that plant starts excreting things like carbonic acids. Guess what that does? It slowly, by surely, begins to eat away at that rock. And the microbiology that is there in that little bit of soil starts converting that into nutrients for that plant to grow. Fascinating. How does a tree grow out of a rock? That's how. The microbiology. Without the microbiology, that tree would never be there. That is how the life in the soil works. I had found this out in Las Vegas. I'd found a rock out in the desert. And I took it into a guy that knew geologist, and because I was curious, so, what caused this? Why does this look like it does? It's kind of weird, especially with the other rocks around it. And I was astounded at the answer. It's like, what? Because this thing was way out in the middle of a desert floor. But what it actually was, and it'll be coming up here in just a second for you to see it, it was where it was at one time probably more up the mountain, quite a ways. And those are root marks where the carbonic acids ate into that rock to dissolve those minerals. Yeah, a rock. So think about it for 30 seconds. If you've got rocky soil, wow, that is nothing more than means I got all the fertilizer I need laying out there in my fields. That's how simple it is. If you have the right biology there to take care of it, it's there. I mean, all the nutrients are there. You don't need to add a thing. Matter of fact, you adding stuff like synthetic fertilizers, you're actually doing it damage. You're setting the system back. You're hitting the restart button. No reason for it. What we need to do is start working with nature to improve our soils to where our kids and our grandkids have something to work with there. I mean, we've been yanking this, the minerals and so forth out of the soil and then destroying the microbiology, which could actually take care of gathering these minerals for us, by trying to replace it with the synthetic fertilizers and so forth. Now, if you work for a synthetic fertilizer company, I'm sure you don't want to hear that. But that rock was found probably about 3 inches, 4 inches from the bottom of this picture frame. It was about a foot or so away from those cactus. That was one thing I always loved about the desert, folks. It has life everywhere. Okay? Now the life has to learn to suffice without much water, because until you start getting plant covers, you don't get the rain. You don't get the moisture falling out of the sky. That's what we're risking here with modern agriculture. We are creating droughts. Okay? We are creating droughts. Keep that in mind. Bare, naked soil builds up a great deal of heat and actually affects the amount of moisture in the air. And let's face it, at zero humidity, you have to moisturize the air before that moisture gets to the ground. The difference between living soil, although this one looks a little, either that's a new cover crop or so forth, but that dry, tilled soil, that barren soil, it's doing nothing but sitting out there, heating up so bad it's actually killing the microbial life in that soil. They can't take that high heats. See what I'm saying? And I'm going to leave some links here to some long talks on the microbial life. Not overly boring, okay? Matter of fact, pretty interesting. But it will help you get all the little facts and figures far better than what I could give. But the fact of the matter is that we have to go back to regenerative agriculture if we want to stop this cycle we're on. And if we don't stop the cycle we're on, folks, heaven help us. Okay? We're facing weather changes as it is. If we don't stop this man-made droughts that we're coming up with, we don't have a lot of options here. I had heard somebody say it best, and it really made a lot of sense. Why can't we feed the world? Water. We don't have enough of it. Okay? We have done something wrong to where we're losing water. Well, that something is we're evaporating it back into the sky. We're not letting it fall on our grass. Hope this helps. Check out those links. Talk to you soon.